It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of March 26, 1993. We got 5 movies to look at today, so let's not waste any time. Let's jump on into it, and we'll start off with the first movie that we have here, the comedy Born Yesterday, starring Melanie Griffith, John Goodman, and Don Johnson. So this is a remake of the 1950 film, which starred Broderick Crawford, Judy Holliday, and William Holden, and almost 50 years later, they remade it, and it's unfortunately not as good as the original version. In fact, good is an understatement for this. Is a statement that's not really appropriate for this movie. This movie's pretty bad. Like, imagine Legally Blonde, except Melanie Griffith is even stupider in the beginning than Reese Witherspoon's character, and for no real reason whatsoever, as the movie goes on, she gets smarter and smarter, and it makes no sense. The charm is not there. Melanie Griffin's trying the best she can here, but man, like I said before, she picked some really bad movies during this time period, and yeah, this movie's pretty bad, and it's got a great cast overall, not just Griffith and Goodman and Johnson. You got Edward Herrmann, you got Fred Thompson. It's just one of those movies that really goes to show you an example of a movie where you should never work with your spouse because, of course, Melanie Griffith and Don Johnson were together at the time. And there were many attempts to try to get them to do stuff like this. They were doing movies like this. They were appearing at the Oscars together. They hosted the Euro Disney Grand Opening Special, which that's a spectacle in its own right for different reasons. But yeah, this movie just wasn't very good. Like, Melanie Griffith's trying her best here. I mean, John Goodman's also doing his best that he can here, but like, Don Johnson really has no purpose in here. It's like, imagine if you took Legally Blonde and mixed it with a little bit of My Fair Lady, and you took out all the charm of both of those movies, because this is not a very good movie. This is a very bland movie. There's no charm. There's no excitement. It's not really all that funny, and it's just not a very enjoyable movie on any means. It's just a movie that, just another example of one of the many bad movie choices that Griffith made at the time. It really kind of brought down her star power a little bit. And like I said before, like, Griffith and Johnson were together at the time, and it's just one of those movies where you look at it and say, yeah, there's probably a good reason why you should never work with your spouse unless you two really pick good scripts, because they were just this is a script that just feels like they were just picking whatever was there, didn't even look at it all the way through, and it ends up being this movie. And it's not a very good movie. Not a very good movie at all. So that's Born Yesterday. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Marley Matlin in the drama Hear No Evil. I don't know. I feel like this movie's kind of being offensive to deaf people, because I mean, the end of that trailer there, where she's calling up where she's trying to call 911 on the phone, and like, I don't know, like, this movie just really feels off on so many levels. Marley Matlin's a great actress. You also have a great cast involved in here: D.B. Sweeney, Martin Sheen, John C. McGinley playing the villain of the film. But yeah, Marley Matlin's a great actress, and she usually doesn't pick any real bad movies, but this one here is one of the ones where I think this is probably the worst one she's picked, because it just feels kind of offensive to deaf people, honestly, because it just feels like, how are you supposed to make this work when the person that she's supposed to is when she can't really hear anything, and the person that she's supposed to be in love with is actually the one that set her up, and it's just a really confusing thriller on so many levels. I feel like maybe there could have been something interesting here. You could have done something on like a Quiet Place type of film here, but it just doesn't work like that. It's a movie that just kind of feels really offensive to deaf people, like I said before. But yeah, it just doesn't feel like a movie that they really thought about it a lot, and just this was the end result. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about Hear No Evil. On to the next movie, the comedy Married to It. Boy, if there was ever a movie that looked like it was supposed to be a TV series, and then they said, screw it, put it on the big screen, this was definitely it, because, man, this looks like a really lackluster sitcom. Not even a good sitcom, really. It's just like, it just seems like a movie that was clearly meant for a TV series or a direct-to-video film. This was put out by Orion Pictures as one of those films that came out when they were filing for bankruptcy. It actually came out in Canada 2 years prior to this movie's release in the U.S., and needless to say, it didn't leave much of a lasting impact. It has a great cast overall: Beau Bridges, Stockard Channing, Mary Stuart Masterson, Sybil Shepherd, Ron Silver. But yeah, like when you look at that trailer, it feels like you're waiting for the ABC logo to come in to tell you coming this fall to ABC or CBS or any of these networks. But doesn't look like a good movie at all. Like, it's a movie that looks instantly forgettable, a movie that a lot of these actors probably regretted doing, and just didn't look like a good movie overall. And for Arthur Hiller, again, this is one of his last movies that he made, because this actually came out after The Babe, and then he would only do 3 other movies after that: Carpool, the Alan Smithy film, and National Lampoon's Pucked, and then that was it for him. Just not a very good movie overall. Just not a very good film at all. So, anyway, on to the next movie: The Opposite Sex and How to Live with Them. Yet another comedy with a really good cast. I mean, Ari Gross, Courtney Cox, Kevin Pollak, Julie Brown. But just nothing there that really is funny or really exciting at all. Like, these are very talented comedic actors that really work off each other in other works. Let me rephrase that. They work better off in other movies. But here, it's just like they're not really given a whole lot of good material to work with. This just looks like a generic romantic comedy with a little bit with sex thrown in there to kind of appease the men to go to the theater with their girlfriends or wives. And it just doesn't look like a really good movie at all. It looks like a very lackluster film, which I actually think this was actually on Siskel and Ebert's Worst of the Year in '93. So that should pretty much tell you about this movie. That's pretty much all I got for you. I haven't seen it. I can't really comment on it, but I have no intentions of ever seeing this movie. So there you go: The Opposite Sex and How to Live with Them. So on to the last film: Peter Weller and Robert Hayes in the action comedy 50-50. Well, the history behind this movie is certainly very interesting. This actually started off as a film intended for Sylvester Stallone and Eddie Murphy, which would have been very interesting considering that Stallone was in contention for Beverly Hills Cop, and then Murphy took that film. Then Eddie Murphy was out, Kurt Russell was in. They were originally going to do this, and then they decided to do Tango and Cash instead, which I don't think really worked out well for them either way. Cannon then picked it up, and then it became a Chuck Norris-Michael Dudikoff duo film. That didn't work out, and then they decided on Peter Weller and Robert Hayes, which would have been amazing in 1988, considering that Peter Weller was in RoboCop a year before, and then Robert Hayes was in Airplane 8 years after this. 8 years before this, I should say. But not in 1993 though. Like this just didn't look. This just was a disaster looks like a disaster from the very beginning. It just didn't look like a movie that was really all that there. I mean, it felt like a movie that was kind of rushed in there. They decided, screw it, we'll get Peter Weller and Robert Hayes. They're 2 notable names, but certainly not on the same level as Stallone or Murphy or Russell. And the results speak for itself. The movie does not look very good. It looks like a Hot Shots parody of all things. But nope, it's intended to be a serious action comedy. But I haven't seen it. I can't really comment on it. But it doesn't look very good. It really does not. So that's pretty much all I got to say about this one. 50-50. And so on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll jump into April with 4 movies, including the infamous Cop and a Half starring Burt Reynolds. We also have The Adventures of Huck Finn, Alicia Silverstone in one of her early film roles, The Crush, and Danny DeVito in Jack the Bear. So 4 movies to look at next time around, and we will do that on tomorrow's show. But until then, thank you very much as always for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.